Hey everyone, good afternoon and happy Friday. Darrell Winninger here from the Central Oregon Daily Weather Center, and across the high desert today we've had tons of sunshine, and this sunshine comes as we're sitting under a high pressure that's just anchored over the Pacific Northwest and the West Coast. Now, it also comes with big warming and a lot of drying. So let's take a deep dive into your most reliable forecast. Look at what's been happening, the changes that are happening this weekend, and what comes next, how long we continue to heat up, and just how hot it's going to get. So let's start off with right here and right now across the high desert. Very few light clouds. You can see a couple of them over the cameras over the Cascades and some of the ones that are pointing towards the Cascades. Otherwise, sunshine. None of those clouds even casting a shadow on the ground yet. And here through this weekend, it's going to be similar to that as we go forward. When we look at road conditions, they're all dry, and we have a whole lot of shadows on the ground. Even in the Cascades, through the passes, just dry roads, and that has been the case just because it's been so dry. Now, there is also cause to let everybody know, if you headed to the other side of the Cascades, there's a series of heat advisories and extreme heat warnings in effect. The extreme heat warning is mostly just for the greater Portland area, and outside of that, heat advisory. I wouldn't be surprised if by early next week, Pendleton issues some of these for the heat advisories for parts of Central Oregon too, because by Monday, it is just getting hot. And with temperatures topping out in the 90s and some 80s during the rest of this weekend, it's also important to remind everybody, when you get inside those vehicles and the air conditioner isn't running and everything's turned off and the windows are all up, it gets hot pretty quickly in there. So just keep that in mind if you have any fur babies or human babies. Check the back seat before you get out of the car. And outside of that, let's talk about what's been happening. There is a broad ridge of high pressure over Central Oregon. There's very little in the way of cloud cover across the entire state. And when we look at the bigger picture, there's just very little in the way of precipitation until you get all the way up into the panhandle of Idaho and Montana. A little bit of northeast Washington has some shower activity, and there is a single thunderstorm up there just south of Newport and to the east and northeast of Spokane. Outside of that, it's just some light showers. None of those are headed our way. Here in Oregon, it's dry. Most of the Pacific Northwest is dry, and temperatures just continue to warm. In fact, it helps if we look at a different perspective. I was just showing you visible and infrared satellite imagery blended together with a little bit of radar thrown on there as well. But it helps if we just look at some things that we can enhance. So I put an enhancement on the infrared satellite imagery, and there's just not much to talk about, and that's mostly because of this broad ridge of high pressure that's out over the Pacific Ocean and amplified all the way up the Canadian coastline of the Pacific Coast and into the Pacific Northwest. That high pressure is bringing the three S's of high pressure: sunshine, subsidence, the atmosphere pretty much pushing down, and stability. Not much in the way for any development of cloud cover or any systems. And because this high pressure built into the region, I'm going to back out just a little bit more and rearrange this. The jet stream is way to our north going into Canada. So we do see some systems from the Gulf of Alaska all the way through Canada, but none of those are headed our way because of the setup, because of this ridge of high pressure. The entire flow is just going right around the edge of this high pressure. So there is activity out over the Pacific Ocean, Gulf of Alaska, and Bering Sea. It's just not headed our way. In fact, we are staying dry through most of the entire 7-day planet, really. In fact, there is a very dry and very warm air mass over Central Oregon, and part of that is because of this ridge of high pressure. So even when we look at water vapor imagery, we can see just how dry it is because of those yellows and the dark blue just to the north of us. Now, when we go ahead and look to the south, that's where we have much drier air, and the subtropical jet stream is bringing precipitation through other parts of the country, but really the west coast just dry for the most part, and we're being influenced by this ridge of high pressure that's just going to stay in place. Now, when it comes to our forecast model, it shows that no significant precipitation is expected through the next 7 days. Even this high resolution forecast model keeps it clear. Winds are going to be variable, and through Saturday it gets breezy for many of us. We'll talk about winds coming up in a little bit though. So just to focus on your weekend, Saturday, 80s. Sunday, 80s. Some 90s. And plenty of sunshine is expected. By the afternoon on Saturday, it is going to get breezy for many of us. By Sunday, still breezy at times, but not as strong of winds. Just going to be hotter and very dry. Speaking of dry, look at this. We have relative humidity values in the teens with a few 20s. By this afternoon, later this afternoon, getting into the evening, some single digits even going to be possible. So that means it is very dry across central Oregon. Add in the direct sunshine. Add in temperatures that are just way above average for this time of the year. And the equation sums up that we just have worsening drought conditions and worsening fire weather concerns because all of the fine surface fuels just continue to dry out in a situation like this. Super hot, super sunny, no rain in sight, not even much in the way of cloud cover, and temperatures that are just way above average for this time of the year. All that added together, not to mention the breeze that we're looking at times, all that added together means fire risk is going to start to pick up. It is still early in the technical fire season, but we're always keeping our eye out for you. Now, highs in the last 24 hours, 80s and 70s. Today, it will be 80s with a few 70s on the map. We still have quite a bit to go, and we're going to be reaching those maximums by later this afternoon. And right now, it's mostly, let me go back. Right now, it's mostly 70s with some 80s on the map, but there's a few spots that aren't in the 80s, do not have far to go, except for Sun River, and we're already running between 1 and 6 degrees warmer than 24 hours ago. So I fully expect most of those temperatures to reach into the 80s. A few 70s still expected. Then through tonight, we have a pleasant evening. In fact, all the way, I'm trying to fight off a sneeze, but anyways, all the way through 11 o'clock, not much in the way of any cloud cover whatsoever. Winds start to taper off and temperatures come back down into the 60s. And so if you're planning on going out to the Sisters Rodeo or doing anything tonight, might want a light jacket for later, but it's going to be a warm evening. Then tomorrow it heats up even more. And with the direct sunshine, not much in the way of cloud cover to help out with that. We have a UV intensity forecast showing 10. We got a 10 tomorrow, a 10 Sunday. It actually comes back down on Monday because of the additional cloud cover. And then on Tuesday, we have another 10. So very high UV intensity, even with the additional cloud cover Monday. But you might be asking, Darrell, what do you mean additional cloud cover? We have another system that's going to be pushing through the high desert, and we'll talk about that here during the next couple of minutes. Let's start off just focusing on this ridge of high pressure. And the forecast model that I'm using right now is geopotential heights, and it's pretty much the thickness of the atmosphere between two specific points pressure-wise, and it just helps us understand where the high pressure is, where the low pressure is, where the jet stream is, what's happening all around. And the moral of the story is the high pressure is anchored over the region and it's just staying put. So through Saturday, cool start, plenty of sunshine and no rain in sight. And we could almost copy paste that for every day. Just so you know, highs in the 80s. By Sunday, mid to upper 80s with a few 90s. We're starting to bring that heat into the high desert. And then by Monday, we are bringing the heat. Highs in the 90s with some 80s. Breezy for some of us, super dry conditions, and no precipitation in sight. And so temperatures just continue to warm. Now, we've been up and down a little bit through the last couple of days, really through this week on Monday and Tuesday. What's happening is a weak front is pushing through on Monday. And it's not bringing too much in the way of changes. There will be some additional clouds on Monday night going into early Tuesday morning. No rain in sight, at least nothing significant, maybe a sprinkle or two in the highest elevations, but nothing to really focus on. And temperatures start to dip down on Tuesday. Now, we have another system later on in the work week next week, but this is going to start, it's going to trigger that drop in temperatures. But either way, look at this. Average high, 76 degrees. The high on Monday, 92 degrees. That is way above average at this time of the year. Some spots on the map flirting with record highs, just not going to be widespread, record-breaking kind of a day. So our forecast model, not the long-range one, we'll get to that in a second, but the regular one we typically use on air, shows this high pressure just doing its dance over the Pacific Northwest, keeping us dry, keeping us sunny. By Monday, we have some in and out clouds. That high pressure flattens a little bit. By Tuesday, we're back to sunshine. Then by Wednesday, another weak front rolls through the region. But ultimately, even when we look at a third model, the long range forecast model, it's showing that sunshine even through Monday, in and out clouds, no rain. By Tuesday, more sunshine. By Wednesday and Thursday, some in and out clouds, no rain. And so very dry conditions continue even with a couple of different systems rolling through the high desert, and there's no precipitation inside. I know that ended Monday evening, but really through the 7-day planner, it is dry. Now, wind gusts, not too bad. They just ticked down just a little bit, but actual gusts up to 20 miles per hour this afternoon. By tomorrow afternoon, stronger winds are expected because of just wind speeds picking up due to our ridge of high pressure. But when it comes to actual wind speeds, more like 5 to 15 miles per hour, and it's going to get breezy at times. Saturday, stronger winds. Sunday, not as strong. Most of this weekend, 5 to 15 miles per hour gusts, 20 to 25. Nothing to really worry about. So for tonight, we're looking at 40s with some 30s and a few 50s. By Saturday, 80s across the map. A few 70s are going to be possible, though. Then we crank the temperature up a little bit more Sunday, a little bit more on Monday. Then a weak system rolls through. Tuesday, a dip in temperatures. Wednesday, still sunshine. Still looking at mid to upper 80s with a few low 90s. And by Thursday, another weak system, also a dry system. Winds get breezy at times. Then we're back to sunshine, still sitting in the 80s, still well above that average high of mid 70s. So your weather headlines for this weekend planner this Friday, June the 12th. Our weekend heating continues. A rain-free forecast is expected, and afternoon breezes pick up across parts of the high desert. There is no rain in sight, and when it comes to cloud cover, we have very little cloud cover until you get all the way up to Spokane, through the panhandle of Idaho, and into Montana. That's where there are some showers. But that is the latest in weather. Join us tonight on Central Oregon Daily News. We'll have the latest headlines and your most reliable forecasts. See you then.